All right, today I'm going to talk to you about health and communication in our life. And to begin with, I'm going to start with a couple stories. This is Ben. When Ben was 2, he could not speak any words. By the time he was 2.5, his mom began to worry because the only words he said were mama and dada. But all the other 2-year-olds seemed to be talking a lot of words. His mom didn't know anything about speech, development, or when children were supposed to be talking. And she didn't know if she was being silly for worrying, but she didn't want to seem silly to the pediatrician, so she didn't go to her pediatrician either. Instead, she went online, like she often does, to look for health communication, health information. And she searched for speech problems in children. And this is an example of what she found when she did a simple Google search for speech problems in children. Speech apraxia, delay, disorder. When should a parent be concerned? She thought, okay, now I'm concerned. She went ahead and clicked on one of the links that sounded official, and it was talking about a family start guide, so that seemed appropriate. And this is something like what the text read in that family start guide. Childhood apraxia of speech is a motor speech disorder for reasons not yet fully understood. Children with apraxia of speech have difficulty planning and producing the precise, highly refined, and specific series of movements of the tongue, lips, jaw, and palate that are necessary for intelligible speech. Apraxia of speech, developmental apraxia of speech, or sometimes called verbal dyspraxia. She stopped. What? I don't understand. What's going on? Well, Ben's mom could not figure out what the information was asking, so she did go to the pediatrician, and she did get the help she needed, and now Ben is 7 and speaking fine. Another story involves Yusuf. This is Yusuf. He's Ben's grandfather. A few years ago, Yusuf began losing his memory and his ability to walk without falling. His daughter, Ben's mom, immediately assumed it was Alzheimer's. Why? Because Alzheimer's was in the news, there were campaigns about Alzheimer's, there was all this information about it. And with that assumption came the assumption that it was not treatable. So nobody in the family sought help for a few months, until Yusuf fell and ended up in the hospital. And that's when the family found out that actually what he had was NPH, normal pressure hydrocephalus. Raise your hand if anybody knows what normal pressure hydrocephalus is. A few people. So this is what normal pressure hydrocephalus is. NPH is an abnormal accumulation of cerebral spinal fluid, otherwise CSF, that causes the ventricles in the brain to become enlarged, sometimes with little to no increase of intracranial pressure, ICP. This is how it was explained to Yusuf's family by the neurologist. Yusuf's daughter, an educated woman in her 40s, found herself completely intimidated. In addition, a deluge of information began from neurologists, neurosurgeons, internists, home care services, nursing aides. Eventually, Yusuf also got the help he needed. But I share these two related stories with you because I think they're great examples of how health guides our everyday life and how health communication plays an integral role in the decisions that we make for ourselves and others. I also think the stories illustrate how personal and yet public health really is. Ben's mom and Yusuf's daughter is me, if you haven't figured that out yet. And both of these experiences happened after I got my PhD, in health communication. And they happened in a family that was privileged, economically, educationally. We had all the access to the best pediatricians and neurologists, and we had access to all the communication channels. And yet there were disconnects between the way I was seeking information and getting that information and understanding it. And I still didn't have the confidence to say to an expert, wait a minute, I don't understand, go back, explain again. Now I want to share with you 2 case examples of public health communication efforts that also present how health communication can impact public health in positive ways. The first case is an example of a user-generated health movement, is what I'd like to call it, and it's called It Gets Better, the It Gets Better project. Raise your hand if you've heard of It Gets Better. Some of you. This project is only a year old, and it was created to inspire hope for young people who were being harassed and dealing with depression and suicidal thoughts. This was sort of the mission statement. This is kind of a mission statement that's on the website. Many LGBT youth can't picture what their lives might be like as openly gay adults. They can't imagine a future for themselves. So let's show them what our lives are like. Let's show them what the future may hold in store for them. After the website was first put up, the idea was that you and anybody you know could put up videos about how it gets better. I'm going to play this short video that summarizes what it's like.
High school was bad. I was obviously gay, and some kids didn't like that, and I did get harassed. What I'd love you to take away from it is that however bad it is now, it gets better, and it can get great.
And it's important for adults to reach out to kids and share our stories so that they can picture futures for themselves that are worth sticking around for.
Okay, little ones. Here's the first thing you need to know.
You are perfect and wonderful exactly as you are.
You're not alone.
There are a ton of us out here in this world.
We love you without even knowing you.
There's art to be made, and there are songs to be sung.
So hold on. Look at me, 80 years old. It gets better with age.
Listen to me.
It gets better.
It gets better.
It gets better.
It does get better.
So much better.
You'll be fine, partner.
Your life can be amazing, but you have to tough this period of it out, and you have to live.
The ability for users to create meaning and health messages allowed this kind of communication effort to succeed. Okay, I'm going to do this right, aren't I? I'm not going to do this right. Okay. It's okay. Okay. All right. The second case is Text for Baby. Raise your hand if you've heard of Text for Baby. This is not a user-generated campaign. Instead, this is a campaign that was produced by the National Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies Coalition. And it was created also just last year to harness the power of the over 85% of Americans who own a cell phone and 72% of cell users who text. It offers free text messaging that is personal, timely, and particularly targeted to low-income women and adolescent pregnant women and other populations in the U.S. who are underserved. And it's through the website. They have a website. They have a Facebook page. They have a Twitter account. And they have a devoted YouTube channel. This is the one that doesn't work. Okay. Little technical difficulty here.
I've been doing this thing. I saw it like on TV the other day, and it was like Text for Baby, and you send the word baby to this number, and they like send you messages 3 times a week about like tips and stuff on taking care of the baby and everything.
We all know by this point, teen moms need all the help they can get. So for all the parents or expectant parents out there, there's a new program called Text for Baby. It's text number 4 baby. It sends a text message 3 times a week with all sorts of interesting advice, from thoughts on pregnancy to tips for new mothers.
So the ultimate goal is to make sure that we reduce infant mortality, that we increase the health of the children and the mothers through pregnancy.
evaluation has shown that this campaign has already increased users' health knowledge, that users have more interactions with healthcare providers, use of health resources, adherence to their appointments more, increased immunizations, and an overall higher satisfaction with the program. So what do all these examples, combined with the research I've done in health communication, shown me about the future of health communication? First of all, audiences of health campaigns and user-generated health movements do not have to understand the science behind a health problem to act for themselves or to act for others. Second, health information changes really quickly. It's ubiquitous, it's fluid, and it's constantly recreated, not just by the professionals, but by individuals and communities via mass media and interpersonal communication at the same time. And third, health disparities persist in this country even though we've known about them for a very long time. We have mobile devices in the hands of 5 billion people worldwide, and we have the experts developing campaigns and information tools. When are we going to learn from the lessons like campaigns like It Gets Better and Text for Baby? So I end with questions, and I pose 3 of them more just to kind of provoke thought. They don't have to necessarily be answered today. First one is, how much scientific and medical information do audiences need to know to use the communication tools to make a difference in their health? Second, what else do you need to do to close the health communication divide that diminishes the potential of underserved communities to build their knowledge and make decisions? And finally, how do we combine what we've learned about user-generated health movements, mobile health messaging, and disparities to create a future for health information that improves health for all people? Thank you.
Questions? And
actually, I wanted
to
ask a question. So only 3 text messages a week. I mean, I was a young mother, and even though I read every book I could get my hands on, it seems like 3 text messages a week wouldn't be a lot of information.
Well, I didn't create the campaign. I can only suspect that they did some research and they found that among these audiences, they're so busy and while they're texting all the time, they're not thinking about those kinds of issues in their life every moment. And to get them to even pay attention to 3 is a real boost in a lot of the ways that they're doing this. And so I think they didn't want to bombard them. Plus, I'm guessing, knowing a lot of the campaigns that I've developed and worked on the other end, resources probably prevented them from being able to constantly monitor incoming text messages, because this was a tailored campaign. So you put in your baby's due date and you get personalized messages about when you need to go for an appointment. They probably couldn't do that in terms of resources more than 3 times a week, I'm guessing.
Dan, or after?
That's a really cool program. I mean, so there's been like a common theme the entire week about how do we educate people about all the resources that are available, right? So there's lots of health information out there. People either A, are not looking or thinking about bringing, you know, information to themselves to become smarter, to learn about these things, to become more involved. And it's all up and down the spectrum, right? It's not just the underserved communities. So it's like, this is a society problem rather than a technology problem.
I think you're completely right about that. So an interesting aspect of the stories you told was basically, person goes out and searches for information, they get something and they go, oh my gosh, and they don't think about how credible it is, how authoritative it is, and they don't know how to evaluate it, basically. So an interesting aspect of this theme of this future information is how do we teach people, or how do people figure it out that information comes with different qualities, and you have to know how to understand the credibility of that. One of the things I do a lot is I teach teachers how to do this kind of thing, and I recently taught a series of 5 classes in Southern California, each one with 50 teachers or librarians in the class. And the topic of the class was how to be a discerning consumer of credible or authoritative information. So 250 teachers and librarians. At the end of each class, I asked, how many of you Googled me before coming to the class? Basic thing, right? 0. 250 people who should have known better, because I could have been bozo, right? How would they know? So I think this is really a fundamental skill we need to have every person understand. especially for health stuff.
But Dan, it's not even credible information. They're not even asking the first question.
Right.
Like they don't even need credibility at that point. Like they need to ask the question.
It's a basic skill.
Even if they got the wrong answer, at least they asked.